in the category of, so this is the 5 things Carl learned on LinkedIn in 2024. I was curious about this. So I thought I'd have him on the show and interview him here. And I'm sure everybody can learn from it, even new grads. And what you just said is something you learned, right? Is what Carl just said. I don't know if it was recording yet or not, was, a few people have reached out to him on LinkedIn who are interested in the same kind of position he has. And, you felt like when you were doing that, everybody should just get back to me, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, of
I
course
did
they
feel
should,
like
but
that.
they're busy. So what have you learned about that?
Well, yeah. So I think so. Well, I think first of all, like the thing that really has surprised me, because we had that conversation a couple of years ago, and I think it was like Justin Welsh or something, which we've kind of off of him at this point, but like he talked about the impact that LinkedIn had on his career, but just by posting once a day. Now, in my opinion, I feel like once a day is way too much. Like that's going to disengage your following. It's too hard to come up with an idea every day. People are just going to get annoyed. Like, okay, this guy again. That's what I think. But for me, I've been really surprised how impactful it's been and how positive of an impact it's had on my career. Really just to talk about like what I think is important and just kind of talk about what I want to talk about. Like there's not really, so yeah, I guess that's the first thing. Sorry, what was that question you asked me? Like what's the
No, that's good. I'll come back. I'll come back to it again. I'll come back to my question, but I want to comment on one thing that you were just talking about, which is this, do I really have to post every day? And I think it's kind of depends on what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And you've certainly found success. It's advancing your career. You're building your network. A lot of positive things are happening. And I mean, you're posting maybe 2 or 3 times a month on
yeah.
average.
Yeah. I mean, so I feel like what happens when you post every day is you end up recycling ideas and recycling posts, and you're just posting to post. My thing is like, don't post unless you have something to talk about. That's why I don't post every day. I think it's ridiculous. Because if you think about these people on LinkedIn that you see and you're suggested or whatever that post every day, it just gets annoying. It's like even influencers you follow on, I don't want to call myself an influencer, but even these people who you follow on Instagram, it's like every day sometimes it's like, oh God, get this guy out of my feed. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
It's a really interesting point, and I don't want to go too much about it because I think your position is a good one, or your opinion about it is really good. And like I said, you've certainly found success not posting every day, and it depends on what you're trying to do. And I certainly see that in my own feed. Sometimes I'll put a bunch of stuff up, and the results are whatever, but I know that's out there and I know it helps the algorithm. But I think it really always comes back to what you said, which is quality over quantity. Because if you're not, and because what happens is it gets confused. People think of, not like you said, you don't want to be considered an influencer. You're not an influencer. It's not the same kind of thing. These people are out there. They're posting every single day, multiple times a day,
Well, and yeah,
because
we
they're
talked
just
about
trying to
like,
capture anything they can versus a quality connection.
well,
Go ahead.
yeah, and we talk about like these guys trying to make LinkedIn a career. Like, you can't make LinkedIn a career. Maybe you can, but it's like that's not really what it's for, and I don't really think you can make it a career. It's like, so just use it for how it's meant to be used. Like also, I guess this brings us to my next point about what's really surprised me about it. Like, it's not hard to stand out because I think a lot of what we see on LinkedIn now is just people, hey, I got this job, hey, I got this certification. It doesn't take that much to be a little bit more unique. Like, okay, great, you got a job or you got a certification, like tell a story about it because and I kind of want to be careful with how I phrase this, but like it's very unlikely that somebody is going to be interested in one thing that you accomplished, like just a standalone thing. They want to hear a story about it. They're thinking about, oh, okay, how can I relate this to my own life? Because, yeah,
Tell a story.
yeah, that's the main thing, I
It's a
guess.
good point. It's a very good point. Tell a story. Because, yeah, I mean, those posts are kind of, someone's got a new job, they got promoted, whatever, they're excited. So they post on LinkedIn for the first time since their last new job.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's
And it
like, how
just
much
doesn't
value?
stand out.
Now, there is value in that because they're network, they're people that they know. Still, like people that they're connected with from past jobs or colleagues or whatever, they'll find out about your new job. And I mean, so that's good. But yeah, it's so much more valuable to everybody. Sorry, I'm looking for a blank thing I can take notes
It's
on while we're
fine.
talking. I'm gonna have to run in the other room because I like to write stuff down so I don't forget to ask you the next question I think of without interrupting you.
But yeah, it's like the thing is, it's this sentiment that a lot I see a lot about LinkedIn and how it's so overrated and it's stupid and whatever. It's because people are thinking about everyone using it in this one-dimensional way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you find a way to just tell a little bit of a story, and it doesn't even have to be much, it just stands out. And then you can like leverage it. It's super powerful. It's super powerful.
Oh, it's really powerful. And listening to Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, in a podcast recently, listening to him talk about LinkedIn and the power of your network. And you hear there's a lot of cheesy phrases out there about your net worth is your network is your net worth and all that, but it's really true.
Yeah, and I
I
don't
mean,
really, I mean,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
it's like whatever. I don't want to get caught up in that. But
Yeah,
one of the things he talked about, I think this is a good metaphor for thinking about how powerful it is, because that's really like you're saying, that's what it's all about, is networking. So,
yeah,
and the influencers, they're doing a whole separate thing. And the good news is if you don't like that, all you got to do is click stop and then you
yeah.
won't see that person's stuff anymore. And so you can clean up your feed over time. You can fill it with better stuff. You can be more intentional about LinkedIn. It is super powerful because it puts you in connection, close connection with like the world of business leaders.
Especially so, like for me, I think I've really seen the power of it because I went to a huge university and I'm in the Air National Guard and I work at a big company. So it's like just those few things, you all of a sudden have access to all these people all over everywhere just by, I see you work at McDonald's, that's where I work. Oh, I see you went to school, that's where I went to school. Like there were so many people when I was trying to get a job and it didn't ultimately lead to anything, but they saw that I went to UW and they're like, "Well, you're a Badger. I'll talk to you." And
Yeah,
like,
it
so
opened the
that's
door,
where it
man.
gets really, really powerful. And like, it's not only to find a job. I think that's another misconception too. Is like, oh, I'm not looking for a job. I'm not going to be active on LinkedIn. Like, I had a professor that would say, Bill Greenwood, I should tag him. But I had a professor. He said, your career is kind of you LLC. So like, your career is your own business in itself.
Yep.
And so you constantly want to be thinking about, not only when you're looking for a job, even if you stayed, I could see myself staying at McDonald's my whole career. It doesn't matter. It's like, how are you branding yourself? How are you branding yourself? You always want to be thinking about that, not only when you're looking for a new job. It's too late at that point. So, yeah.
Yeah, you got to build out your and everybody can. Yeah, there's so many things in there. ULLC is that concept that we love. I love. I think we talked about that in the very first one of these podcasts that we did. We'll make sure and tag him now because we've mentioned him a couple times. But have him on the show, man. Anybody who wants to come on. That's the thing too. I was going to say earlier. If you're a LinkedIn influencer and you're like, I disagree.
Oh, yeah.
I'm crushing it on LinkedIn. Come on, let's talk about it because that's the point. It's not one dimensional. You need to be intentional about it. So what are you trying to accomplish with LinkedIn? And then
Hmm.
you go about it because it's super powerful just in like the ways you're using it just to enhance your network as it's already
Yeah.
established and put you in connection with people that you never would have talked to otherwise. I mean,
Yeah. And so that's another thing that happens is it bridges the gap between, so for example, if I had a leader that, and this has happened a couple times, if maybe somebody interacts with my post who is like higher up, like that conversation of me going to them then is way easier and feels way more comfortable than me just approaching them cold. So like that's another huge thing it does. It almost like breaks the ice before you make the connection. And that's something that I never really thought would happen with it, and has been great. So
so
yeah.
these are situations where you've actually made a connection with a higher up on LinkedIn and then went to talk to them later.
So no, not even, right? It's like maybe a higher up interacted with something on my LinkedIn, and then it
Okay.
was just easier to talk to them in the office because they saw that, or we had something to talk about. We had a shared
Yep.
experience where we could discuss.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
kind of like when we would talk about, like the cold call, like you gotta, it's like that flyer. It's like comes back to the flyer in 2009, right? It's like, yeah, it's so much easier if you have something that you can talk about beforehand. making a connection, or because like if you're just cold calling somebody, if you're just talking to somebody for the first time, like they're going to be standoffish and a
Yep.
little hesitant and uncomfortable. If you have something beforehand, it makes it easier. And like that's a
Yeah.
whole nother podcast we could talk about with the flyer. But like, what a great life lesson. How old was I? Like 8 or something?
Yeah, 10, I don't know, not that old. The flyer, quick story about the flyer, it was just a lead generation tactic for a light bulb
Light
sales
bulbs. Don't we still have
program.
those? We have a few of those in
I
the
still have a
basement.
bunch of
So
those light bulbs down here in the basement. Yeah, so we sold light bulbs as a fundraiser for the school, and we used this system that I had used way back when to get people interested in painting their street address on their curb. But anyway, the whole idea being you get someone's attention first, or at least put it in their mind somehow, and then follow up. And that's the key. And that's what's so cool about LinkedIn is you really have permission to reach out to anybody. If you invest in a
yeah,
sales navigator or premium, I mean, you get a certain number of in-mails. And if the CEO of some company has it open, they may not be looking at it. Because here's the other important thing to remember. Busy, successful people aren't spending their entire day on LinkedIn.
yeah,
So now they're on there. We've seen it over and over again with certain people that we know that I won't mention in particular, but it's like, because it's a networking tool and it's a business tool, and there is a lot of good news that comes through there that is helpful, I find, and I know others do too. So, but it's that reach out and then follow up. How can you make yourself more familiar with the people that you're reaching out to? And the first thing you already talked about is, graduate from the same school. These things seem silly, but they go a long way toward building connections and building that initial connection. And then I think what I'm
yeah.
hearing from you too is somehow it's just giving you more confidence in talking to these people than in person.
Because yeah, you just feel a little bit more. There's certain times where it's like, okay, I feel a little bit more well known. Like I don't feel like such a. I don't know. I don't really know what to the term, but yeah,
Yeah,
feel a little bit more familiar. And like I
right.
think even subconsciously that helps. Like people may not even realize that it's like, oh, I saw him on LinkedIn. I feel more comfortable talking to him. But subconsciously, yeah, I think it makes an impact too. It's just
Oh,
kind of human
absolutely.
nature.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. There's a whole other psychology that's happening with all of that stuff. I was always amazed when I was on TV regularly here in Madison running that health and fitness segment with Lee Mills. People see you on TV and they think you're some kind of a celebrity. It's just kind of an automatic reaction people
yeah,
have. And when they actually see you in public, it's like, oh, wow. And it's like, well, all I'm really doing is driving
yeah,
over to the TV station and giving the same thing I do right here from my desk, but somehow TV gives it this amplified effect, and
yeah,
LinkedIn,
Dad. You know what? We've got to pull up the clip from the
the fl-
bedtime routine when we were on TV.
Oh shit. I'm running this one from my phone, so it's gonna be impossible for me to do that unless I join. Yeah. We'll share these. Yeah, Carl and Anna were on TV with me one time in one of those segments. And then we should share the flyer because the flyer is literally a flyer you can take. In fact, here's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're like, this flyer, this follow-up system, what is it? And you want it, just DM me or Carl and we'll send you the flyer, because literally the flyer you can put in your swipe file. I got a swipe file right down here. Every time I find a good marketing piece,
And
I put it in. You can copy the format for anything.
yes, and you can use it for anything. Like I think, that's what I saw like when I was looking for a job, and like, finding a job's not easy, but I think, it's just one example of I think something that gets overcomplicated or overthought. It's like if you went around one day and said, I really want a job in this place, in this city, at this business, just give them the flyer. Even if you're handing it to a security guard, give them the
Yeah.
flyer.
Yeah.
And then you have, one other that's makes it easier to make a contact with them. Then you seem more familiar. Yeah, it works with anything.
And then do a video or a podcast or write something to show people who you are. The other important thing to remember in all of this, and I read this back in the early 2000s when this was all first becoming a thing, and I was totally latched onto it and interested and curious about it, is that your resume is your last post on LinkedIn
Yeah.
or your last video you put up on Facebook, wherever you're putting stuff up. That's your resume. So you got your resume, but then you really want to think strategically. You and I talk about this all the time. You're
Yeah.
working on something, you're trying to make a connection with somebody. Well, do something that makes it easier for that connect. Or like if you've just connected with somebody you really want to talk to on LinkedIn, then the very next day, do
Or
a
in
post
person.
on LinkedIn that's related to what you're wanting to talk about with that person, because LinkedIn will put it up in front of them. And, I mean, they may
Yeah.
not see it, but they might see it.
Because, so yeah, that's another thing. That's actually a great point. That's another thing. If you recently connected with somebody, or if somebody's recently connected with you and, they've accepted it and all that, that's a huge opportunity for you to, yeah, like post something, especially if it's somebody who you want to get their attention or impress or whatever. You put something up that is specifically related to how you want to get their attention or how you want to convey yourself to them. And they'll see it because they just connected with you. I don't, that's just interesting how the LinkedIn algorithm works, but that's how it works. Like
Well,
the
and that's
people
what,
who you more recently connected with will see your post first.
that's right. And anybody else who liked one of your posts 2 days
Yes.
ago is going to see it again.
And that exposes it to their whole network. Like that's what makes LinkedIn so powerful, right? Like what other social network where if you like somebody, it instantly puts it in everybody else's feed in their network? That, like, think about that for a second. That's
Well, yeah, think
massive.
about it. So, and then I'll tell another story from the old days, because it kind of like, yeah, like, because this stuff didn't exist when I was, let's see, I was getting ready to start graduate school and I needed a job, but I used this tactic
Yeah,
repeatedly.
with the
And
the
so,
printing press.
well, yeah, I just printed up a bunch of my resumes and I put a nice pair of Dockers on with a shirt and tie, and I went out into Walnut Creek, California. And I was looking for a part-time job. I was going from, undergrad to grad school, so I wasn't looking for my next career. However, I'm quite certain that if I was still working at this print shop, I might own the print shop by now. So it could have started something.
Okay.
So, all right. But I'm just trying to tell a story about how much easier it is today, but it's the same idea, and you do want to combine it with personal stuff. So you got LinkedIn and all that digital stuff. That's all great. But I'd print out a stack of my resumes and I'd literally go call on the businesses. I made a list of 25 print shops in town and I went and dropped off my resume at every single one. Some of them were there, some of them weren't. Some of them I talked to the owner, some of them I talked to some random person at the front desk. And sure as shit, like 2 days later, or maybe it was the next day, the owner of the shop called me and said, "Hey, John, we got this thing. We got to run this copier. We got to make these manuals. We'd love to hire you. Come on in." I mean, I found every job I have found that way. And many sales prospect, that's how I've always
I
sold
mean
things.
that's how it's done. I just feel like that's if you that's how you get what you really want. And then we've talked about this a lot. But you can go out and I've talked about this uh before. But you can go out and you can apply to as many jobs, as a bunch of jobs, and you probably get a job. But is that the job that you want with the people that you want at the place you want? Maybe, maybe it
Right.
is, but I think many times it's unlikely, and you just have to put in. You got to stand out because, like, there's so much opportunity now, but then also like there's less because there's more. I don't know. It gets a little complicated, but yeah, there really is just a massive opportunity to like be successful, make an impact, be known, and like LinkedIn is a great way to start. And it's the social network that I've felt most comfortable on, like being myself. I haven't had to put on a
Yeah.
character or facade, or haven't felt uncomfortable posting. Like when I've tried to do Instagram, I just feel weird. Like LinkedIn, it just feels so natural
Yeah.
to post on there.
Yeah. That's, those are all good points too, because, and related to that, which you kind of made the point, but not directly, but I just want to reinforce it, which is post or create, definitely post and create. I believe this very strongly. Can't not do it. And Gary Vee talks about this all the time. You need to be putting stuff up and putting it out there.
Oh
It's the
yeah.
new world. It's how things work.
Yeah, these people who are saying, "Oh, I just got rid of my social media. It's bad for me." Okay, I totally disagree. Right? It is a too much, but like, come on now, you got to be doing a little bit.
Well,
You're gonna
yeah,
get
because
behind.
it's all about context. They're consuming a bunch of social media, and that's what they're really talking about. And it's like, yeah, um, which reminds me of a point I was going to make earlier, which I'll try and remember at the end of this one. But what I wanted to say was
Well, yeah. So
post
my
and
MTIs
create.
at Air Force Basic Training, they said social media is ridiculous. You guys should really think about getting rid of social media. I was like, all right.
Yeah, which
I
is
don't know
really
about
the
that.
equivalent of saying run away in life from where all of the attention is, from where everybody's going to be. Go away from that and don't do it. Go do something totally different. In other words, as time goes on, this is how people are communicating. This is how they're connecting. This is where people are. But you got to be smart. You got to be intentional about it. You have to be deliberate about it. And so that's what I was going to say to finish my point was that do it at a frequency that makes sense for you. Do it in a way that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be a video. It can be audio. It
Mhm.
can be write it. And then don't listen to anybody who tells you no one reads anything anymore. That's totally not true. If people are interested in the topic and they're interested in you,
In
they'll
fact,
engage.
I make videos on LinkedIn because I like making videos and I like talking, which my team will know that I like talking and asking questions and whatever. But the text does way better on LinkedIn than the videos.
It really,
We just do that because we enjoy making the videos.
yeah,
But
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, that's like that should be more encouragement for you there. All you got to do
absolutely.
is make a text post and then also I just think it's a unique way to like represent your company and show your company respect and props like I did with my last post. Like that's another way it's really cool.
Oh, for sure, because companies really should be embracing this idea. And it is out there now
And
because when I
McDonald's
did,
does. Our CEO is out there making posts. I love
yeah,
it.
the CEO of
I love it.
McDonald's is out there making weekly posts on LinkedIn. So it's like they're, and look at what if it's done many things. But if it's done one thing, it's inspired you to post on LinkedIn and to
Yes.
post about McDonald's on LinkedIn. So it's
Yes.
this idea. I did a post on this. It's probably on the ashflash.com somewhere. I have no idea where it is, but it was basically about this newer idea. It's funny because I've watched the whole evolution of this where this stuff first came along and you have to be really careful because everybody thought if you were doing any of this, you were, trying to
Trying
find
to find
another
another
job or
job. Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, you know what? You don't
Not
own your
true.
people. And in fact, when you invest in this idea and encourage it and support it, and then, have some guidelines and some rules and things about it, you have brand ambassadors sitting around in your company waiting to shout it from the
Yeah.
rooftops. And you need to take advantage of
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
So I love that idea, and of course, especially someone like me who's just in me to like do this kind of stuff. It's just fun. Um, but there's a concept. Dan Kennedy talks about it all the time, and it's this thing that's always, and it's not all of it. It's just part of it. So that's the thing to remember. We're talking about there's all these parts of it, and one of the parts is what is known as whale hunting. So in other words, you may be putting posts up for 2 years and talking about something and somebody may be watching and that over time, if it's quality, if it's valuable, if it's the right thing for the right person, a very big potential customer will eventually say, gosh, this guy, this girl, she's really unique. She's on here. I love the way she talks. She reminds me of my granddaughter, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And suddenly your phone is ringing and you're like, talking to this person because you put it out there.
And you took advantage of every opportunity that was in front of you and you did the best that you could with what was given to you. I think that's another thing that people underestimate is like, oh, it's not the perfect opportunity and whatever. That's a whole different discussion. But like just the people who've kind of reached out to me, like asking advice about their cybersecurity career, it's like, stop trying to look for the perfect job. Like the best way you can start is just to start. Just start and take advantage, do the best you can at that. And that'll lead you to the next thing. I didn't start in the perfect way. I started working at McDonald's as a crew member. I mean,
That's
you
right.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I
So,
started working at the print shop for six
yeah,
months and literally running the copy machine for 6 months. That's what I did. I think I worked for them for a year, but it wasn't glamorous. And again, one of the things it did is reinforce this idea of like, it's just a decision to do something rather than do nothing. Print some resumes out, go cold. I had no idea if that was going to work or it's not going to work. You know what I mean?
and it's scary. It's not comfortable. It's
No, it's
very
totally
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. You're like, oh my God. And literally only one place got back to me, but it was that one.
Yeah,
So it worked, and so on and on and on. I mean, if you're a salesperson, you know that this is what life is like and this is what it's like. If you're a small business owner trying to sell, this is what it's like. And this is what, again, Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing program is all about is when you get your messaging right and it's a reflection of you and it's valuable and whatever, and you get it out there, your people will find you very efficiently, and you'll find better customers and better connections and better jobs. You've mentioned it now a few times. Be intentional, but also be in motion and take this job if it's not perfect and keep working on finding the
Yeah,
next
exactly.
perfect job. Don't be sitting
It's like
around
that
saying,
in
well,
itself will teach you, more than like, for example, like at college, I like a lot of the topics I learned were great, but more of what I learned was just how to like handle myself under pressure. Wasn't the
well,
best
right, and
analogy,
this
but
whole idea of which it's literally it's self-promotion, but it's also, which is why people get weird about it, scared of it. I don't want to come across as one way or the other, but it's like, well, no one's
well,
going to
you're not
find
going to
out
come
about you.
across anyway if
That's
you don't
right.
put anything out there.
That's right.
So,
And not
yeah,
everybody will love you, and everybody's got an opinion, and weird people will come along and say weird things, and you just ignore them, and keep going
no
because
publicity
there's
is bad publicity.
that's right, and that is so so true. It's so true. Um,
And sometimes, yeah, you'll ask the wrong questions, or you put a post up that maybe that wasn't the best, but like, well, it's just part of the process, and
yeah,
you learn,
that's right.
and
You
it's fine.
learn, and really, in general, not that many people see it.
And then they forget, like, gosh, Bruce Bosman. One time we were talking about how he speaks in front of people all the time, and like how he got over it is he just realized, you know what? Even if you make a mistake, nobody's gonna remember it, and if they do remember it and they're thinking, wow, he's such an idiot, they're gonna forget it in 15 minutes. No one is thinking about you.
No. And even if they're thinking about, oh, what an idiot, they're thinking about you, and that's better than not thinking about you.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because if they hop on LinkedIn the next day and then see something better from you, then they're like, they'll get over it. It's just like that's why you got to keep going, and you got to keep hustling, and you got to keep putting it out there, and you got to keep trying to make it better. Like one thing I will say, because I've been doing this since the early 2000s and really before that, is practice, man. It's
Oh yeah,
you're not, and you learn from, so you put something up and it bombs, learn from that, put something up that does great, learn from that, but keep putting stuff up and keep looking at it and keep iterating. After, it's a Noah Kagan thing where he's like, create 100 of something. If you got an idea and you want to go
yeah,
after it, do 100.
that's
So
good.
like literally a year ago on Instagram, I was like, all right, I'm going to make 100 videos, reels on Instagram. And I did that. And,
I didn't know
I gained about
that.
what's that?
I didn't know that was your motivation.
And yeah, I know. That's why I'm telling this story, because you go to my Instagram profile, Johnny Renaissance. It's a cool way for you to know me a little more personally if you're thinking about working with me or whatever. But I only have almost, close to 600 followers. That's it. I've
Mm.
gained like 100 followers in a year of doing this. But you know what? I can create some pretty cool videos in a short amount of time now. And I'm quite certain that for my next partner, my next funeral home, is like, yeah, John, we want to really lean into Instagram and create some cool content. In fact, I have one now. I'm, kind of an expert in that now. And so I can take that skill and everything I learned and boom, move it on to the next thing. Because that's another one of my things now too, is like it or not, if you want to have a big career and be successful, you really need to know more about this stuff and be good at it, because it really is part of what your set should be in your career.
Yeah, and I think, another reason why this is so important is because this is a place where AI is never going to be able to take over this unique human communication, connection, and outreach and influence. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Elon Musk comes out and says that, yeah, well, like, no, it won't. Nothing's ever going to replace that. So I think that's another reason why, yeah, it's important to look into it.
Yeah, and learn about it. And when it comes to AI, in my opinion, again, at least right now, is looking for ways to enhance what you're just talking about with AI, with the use of AI. And so one
Yeah.
quick, easy example of that is just how much easier it is to crank out a lot of content using AI. I was amazed earlier today. I was like, again, and this is a simple little system I've been using. I encourage you to test it and try it. The more you engage with your chat GPT, the better it gets, the more it learns about you. Record something, take the audio, make it into a transcript, feed it into ChatGPT with prompts, and watch what comes out. It's unreal. I read something this morning and I was like, that's way better than I would have written. That's way better. And it
Yeah.
was in 5 minutes, you know? And so there's a guy I'm following. I subscribe to his newsletter, and he's got a system for writing a book literally in 3 days using a very similar kind of methodology. And I think it is definitely doable. And it's really interesting what happens when you can combine the human part with the AI part, and then really, but don't hide from it because it's not going anywhere. But remember that, yeah, that human part can't replace that human part. Even if AI develops a consciousness, which they say it will or might, or you can
Yeah, it
debate
still won't
that.
replace real human connection.
No,
And
no.
like,
So
yeah,
where does that
we
fit
could talk.
with
I mean, we
everything?
can make a whole nother podcast just about that.
Yeah, totally.
But
Well, in fact, that was one of the podcast, the content that I've done recently that gets the most traction is the content talking about AI. So if you're looking for ideas out there for something you can post on LinkedIn tomorrow, go read some stuff about AI tonight, develop your own opinion about it, and do a video and see what happens. But you got to be in it and learning from it if you're going to benefit from it. And the more you know about it, the better. Like I think you said this at the beginning, which is it's like puts you in the minority like immediately because most people are not taken. And there's a reason that everybody else is where they are, that most will shy away from this idea, but the ones that do will
have the
benefit
success. Like, it's that
benefit
freaking
immensely.
simple. It's really that simple. No, you know what, Dad? So, really interesting thing. So, I think, great. This was really good. This is a really good
Yeah, yeah.
podcast.
Oh yeah, this is solid. So Carl, thanks for being here tonight, man. It's always good to talk with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hope those listening to this got some good ideas about LinkedIn and beyond and about how to take your career to the next level. And just keep going, man. Keep working, keep hustling. And remember,
Yes, like is right behind you.
that's right. I got it written down right up there. And I've literally seen posts on LinkedIn recently about the hustle culture. Kill the hustle. Like
Oh,
there's this,
whatever.
and it's
God.
like, you got to
So
hustle.
lame.
You got to work. All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Come on.
it really is. I mean, come on now.
And
It's like,
but
yeah,
it's
it's important to have a
because,
balance, but like, I don't know.
well, part of it is that people feel the need to come out and speak against the influencers who tend to hype this stuff in a way that's kind of ridiculous, like the hustle culture. But I wanted to make it clear, which is one of the reasons I wrote that and stuck it up there, because I've read a couple of those posts and I'm like, that's BS. You need to get to work. You need to work. You
Yes,
need
you
to
got to
hustle,
work.
whatever it takes. And it's not always going to be easy, and it shouldn't be, and go get it.
No.
Okay, so that's a good place to finish. If you got anything to add to that, Carl, you can add, and then we'll stop recording.
No, yeah, I just want to say thanks for calling me because I was meaning to make a LinkedIn post and I got unmotivated and then I saw the podcast link. So glad we could make it happen. This is
Yeah, you
awesome.
bet. And actually, a quick plug for Riverside. That's the app I use. I think it's a very powerful concept for anybody. Anybody could use this concept to build an extremely powerful network. Subscribe to Riverside. You can check the affiliate link near this post wherever you may have found it. And all you have to do is send someone a link via text message, and you're in a conversation that you're recording, that you can edit later, that you can let AI break into clips for you. It's not that hard. And most people, 8 out of 10, will agree easily to say, yeah, call me. Let's have a chat about it. A lot of people are a little bit uncomfortable with it, but when you do it conversationally, so anyway, just as another quick tip, quick idea.
Yeah, also, it's like if you're because I've had a couple of people like, "Hey, I applied to this position. Is there anything you can do?" Like, I'm not talking to you. But if you you know, or applied to a position and I didn't mean for that to sound like elitist or anything, but if you applied to a position and you're like, hey, I just want to learn more about what you do. Okay, sure. Yeah, great. I'll talk to you. You want to learn more about what I do? Yeah, sure. So it's just like all in the way that you phrase.
The approach. That's
Yep.
right. And it's the approach. You need to remember that everybody's looking to get something out of something. In other words, like you don't want to talk to the guy you just described because it's like he's just trying to use you to get what he
Yeah.
wants.
Which,
That's
like,
not
I
how,
understand that's kind of the case otherwise, but like, hey, at least you want to know a little bit more about me.
and
It's
what you
like,
really want to lean into and play into is that everybody loves to talk about themselves and everybody
yeah,
loves the opportunity to talk about what they do. And so give them that opportunity and you'll get everything else and more that you want, but don't be a, jerk about it, you know.
yeah,
Come from
exactly.
the other person's perspective. So, all right, very good. because yeah, I'd talk to just about anybody if they approach me the right way. Most people don't, though. Most people mess it up.
Yeah.
And the connect and pitch on LinkedIn, worst thing you could ever do in life, I think, is send me a connection request, have me connect with you, and then the very next thing you do is pitch me on your product.
God.
Thumbs down, baby.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. It's ridiculous. It's
Or
like it
these
must.
sponsored posts, those don't work. Stop sending those
Yeah.
businesses. They don't work. I don't know how you haven't figured that out by now. Those do not work.
What do you mean the sponsored ads?
Just anything. It's like sending sponsored messages in LinkedIn. I just do not feel like that works. I think that
Well,
is a
yeah, like
wasted
in
one.
your DMs.
Yes.
That's the equivalent literally of stopping by my house, but not knocking on the door, just coming in. I mean, it's not quite the equivalent, but it feels like, yeah, it's an interruption. So make it worthwhile.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, later.